stands 5'9" tall, weighing in at 125 pounds. His record: 2 wins, 0 defeats. Fighting out of Team Oxendine, Johnson City, Tennessee, I give you the War Boy, Randall Austin Jr.
Hello there everybody, Sean Sheehan here with another video, and today I am talking about Randall Austin Jr. fighting out of Johnson City, Tennessee. The War Boy is a really good up-and-coming fighter. Right now he stands with a record of 4-0, and he's a prospect that I've looked at all of his fights now, and I'm very impressed with him. This guy is fighting anybody, any weight, anywhere, anytime, and you know, he's a really good record. Made his debut back in October 2020, won against William Wilson, then fought Anthony Foy at the start of 2021, fought in May of 2021 against Joshua Oxendine, and fought Kasim Ruffin in January of this year, 2022. And I just want to talk about, first of all, that fight against Anthony Foy, where he came out and he was bouncy on his feet. You know, he'd remind you of maybe a McGregor or someone like that, fighting out of the southpaw stance as well, with like a really bouncy kind of looking for openings, kind of a guy who, you know, is kind of the prototypical normal fighter of today, almost, that fights out of that almost karate stance. Not necessarily a karate stance, but that bouncy type of elusive sort of fighter. And then he quickly changed in that fight to be someone who's not looking for strikes from that position as much, although he did look for strikes, but he looks for takedowns, and got a takedown early in that fight. Showed very good clinches in that fight, showed good combinations in that fight. One thing I was very impressed with from him as well is in his wrestling is a takedown he got from a kick, which is something I think in MMA that fighters actually don't do as much these days as they should, especially with the calf kick, which is kind of taken over the sport. But he did that very well in that Anthony Foy fight. He was able to get some top control, did very well in that position. Another thing I was very impressed with from him in that fight was his pressure. He landed a lovely counter left hand as well at one stage. He landed a beautiful overhand left as well at that stage. And I like the pressure from him. And that is something we didn't see loads of in that fight. And it was something while watching that fight, I was kind of saying, I want to see more of this. And we did see that. And I'll get into that in a second. But in that first fight as well, I think he's shown throughout his career his ability to finish. And the guillotine finish at the end of that fight against Anthony Foy was absolutely beautiful, and it was a lovely finish. Ended up obviously tapping Foy in that fight. Then he moved on, went 2-0 in that fight. Then he moved on to go 3-0 against Joshua Oxendine. And this was a very interesting fight because I'm not sure of the whole backstory, but there was clearly some heat between not necessarily even the two guys, but the two sets of fans and the fans in the audience. And this was a real kind of hot and heavy fight to start off with in terms of the crowd reaction and all of that. And I think that played into Austin's game at the very start of that. Wasn't a great start for him. To me, one thing I had, the only time I've seen it from him in his fights was here, and he was falling into shots early in this fight, which I don't think was good, but he settled. You know, he's a guy, he started his first fight very well. Sorry, his fight against Anthony Foy very well. He started his fight, we'll talk about it in a second, against Kasim Ruffin very well. This fight, he didn't start great, but he very quickly kind of turned it around, and obviously was able to get the finish late in this with the beautiful heel hook. But before that heel hook came, he looked for a guillotine at one stage. Wasn't necessarily close to getting it, but he looked for it, and if it was there, he would have got it. It wasn't there at the time, so he didn't end up getting it. Had an armbar try. Actually, after the guillotine as well, he landed a few knees. Got his takedown. Went for the armbar. Or sorry, he got taken down. Went for the armbar. Went for the second armbar. And was just so active off of the ground that you could not be impressed by it. Oxendine is a good fighter. He looked a very good fighter there, good top control and all of that, but he never was able to get anything going in terms of submissions himself or strikes himself, because War Boy kept attacking from the bottom. And as I mentioned, those two armbar tries and then a long heel hook try. He was heel hooking, wasn't able to get it. Looked like Oxen 9 was just about to get out of it, and then he got the finish. He got the heel hook lead. He ended up tapping him, and it was a really, really good finish. And it all came down to kind of his comfortability on the ground. As he showed at the start of the round, and the start of that fight, it got him a little bit. He was throwing too many shots, but when the fight got to the ground, settled, and he could show his quality, he showed it, and that heel hook was a great sign of it as well. Then we come to the Kazim Rimchard fights, and I'm taking this in, analysing him as his fights go. Usually I like to analyse people overall as a fighter, but he has changed so much, I think, between fights that you kind of have to analyse him then, and then. In this Kazim Ruffin fight, I think he was a completely different fight. Less bouncy, none of that kind of karate stance, McGregor or Gunny Nelson sort of bouncy stuff. He was standing kind of straight up in his southpaw stance, throwing a couple of jabs right down through the middle. But one thing about him, especially early in his career, it was all one shot. It was all left hand, spamming that left hand, which is never great. We saw more combinations in this fight against Kazim Ruffin. Before that, though, we saw a beautiful throw takedown, which is something that I love to see, because Austin is very good in the clinch, very good at taking people down there, but to have a double leg or a throw takedown or a trip takedown is also something which I love to see out of young fighters coming up. And that throw takedown was something that was very impressive. Got on top again and did well on top. But the clinch as well is something that really stands out for Randall Austin Jr. His ability to get to the clinch. And one thing, my favorite thing from all of his fights, I like to call it kind of dirty striking. We used to call it dirty boxing before. We land kind of elbows and combinations against the cage and just make it tough for your opponent in the clinch, but coming out of the clinch as well. And I think he's really, really good at that. And his ability to move from to clinch to striking to wrestling in that fight was absolutely fantastic. I thought he showed some good defensive work as well when he was striking, which was maybe a worry in his earlier fights, but I thought he did very well with that. Again, landed some lovely elbows out of the clinch. Got hurt in that fight as well. Got cut really badly, and it looked like maybe the fight would have been stopped, but he came back. Didn't really knock a stir out of him. As well, coming into the Oxen 9 fight, there was a bit of adversity with the crowd. In this fight, he had adversity with the cut. Also, late in the fight, he got taken down, but got through it. Again, look for the armbar. Again, look for the guillotine on the ground, and just defended very, very well. And a big thing as well, that in this fight, he showed not spamming the one punch, but he was throwing combos and combos and combos, and his cardio held up. And that is a massive thing for someone who's a wrestler switching to being maybe a volume boxer, because it's a very different thing, and to do a different thing takes different cardio levels. And the fact that his cardio levels stood up to that is a very encouraging sign for him going forward. So I suppose to wrap it all up, he has gotten better as a boxer. I think he's better as a cardio. I think he's gotten better as a wrestler. And his jiu-jitsu game on the bottom is really, really good. That active guard is fantastic. And he's been more active on the feet, more active on the ground, and his cardio is holding up. And I think a lot of that shows with the late combinations he's able to throw and land in fights, and the improvements that he's gone, throughout it. He looked like Mayhem Miller in his first fight there, and the mayhem he was bringing by the time he came to his fourth professional win was something to behold. And he's definitely a guy you should be looking out for, and definitely a guy that we will be talking about in the years to come. All right, I will leave it there. My name is Sean Sheehan. Hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you all next time.